The wine glass shattered against marble floor, red liquid bleeding across Julian Cross's pristine white shirt like an accusation. 3 years ago, this man destroyed my art career with a single review. Now we're being forced to play the perfect artistic couple to save a $500,000 museum grant. Smile for the cameras, kiss his cheek at galas, pretend the man who called my work technically competent but soulless is my inspiration. For 30 days, I have to collaborate with my enemy on a single masterpiece. But when he watches me paint at 2 a.m. in my studio, hands still stained with crimson, why does his expression look less like hatred and more like hunger? Is this performance art, or am I about to ruin everything I've worked for? Gallery lights cast golden halos over champagne flutes and polished shoes. My third solo exhibition in 2 years, the walls lined with abstract pieces that collectors called accessible, and I called surrender. The kind of work that paid rent but hollowed out my chest. I adjusted the collar of my black dress, smiled at a patron discussing investment potential, pretended my art was supposed to hang above sofas instead of challenging the people who looked at it. Then the crowd parted near the entrance, and my stomach dropped. Julian Cross stood in the doorway, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly studio rent. His dark hair was pushed back from sharp features, those calculating gray eyes already scanning the room like a predator assessing prey. 3 years since I'd seen him in person. 3 years since his review had carved out my confidence and left me painting pretty pictures for pretty people. Clara Bennett, his voice cut through champagne chatter. Still chasing trends, I see. Every head turned toward us. Phones emerged from pockets. I felt Maya's warning hand on my elbow, but the wine glass was already in my grip, already moving. The crystal shattered against marble with a sound like breaking promises. Red liquid bloomed across his white shirt, spreading like accusation, like all the things I'd never said to his face. "You have no right to be here," I said, each word sharp, clean, controlled despite my shaking hands. Julian looked down at the stain, then back at me. Something flickered across his expression, too quick to name. "I have an invitation." "From who?" "Margaret Chen." He pulled a folded card from his jacket pocket, somehow still composed despite looking like a crime scene. "She thought I should see how you've evolved." Maya's grip tightened. Security was moving through the crowd. Cameras flashed like lightning, capturing what would be tomorrow's scandal. But I couldn't look away from Julian's face, from the way he watched me like I was a painting he was still trying to understand. "You destroyed me," I whispered, loud enough for only him to hear, quiet enough that it felt like confession. His jaw tightened. "No, I told you the truth." Then security was between us, and Maya was pulling me toward the back office, and Julian was being escorted out with wine dripping from his collar. The crowd buzzed with delicious scandal. My career was about to become a headline. I had just made the biggest mistake of my professional life. Morning light stabbed through studio windows like an interrogation. I lay on the paint-stained couch where I'd collapsed at 4 a.m., head pounding, phone buzzing somewhere beneath yesterday's clothes. Every surface in my studio held evidence of my spiral. Empty wine bottles, failed canvas attempts. The dress I'd worn last night crumpled near the door like a discarded skin. The buzzing wouldn't stop. I thought about Julian's expression when the wine hit him. Not anger, something else, something that made my chest ache in ways I didn't want to examine. The photo was already everywhere online. Artist attacks critic in violent outburst. My mother had called 6 times, the gallery owner twice. Maya's text formed a novel of concerned emojis and "Call me now." But the buzzing was my phone. The screen showed an unknown number. My thumb hovered over decline. Against better judgment, I answered. "What?" "Clara Bennett." Margaret Chen's voice carried the precise disappointment of a museum director watching her funding evaporate. My office, 1 hour. This is not optional. Margaret, I can explain. Bring aspirin, you'll need it. She hung up. I stared at the ceiling, at the water stain that looked like a Rorschach test of my failures. Outside, the city hummed with morning traffic and people who hadn't assaulted art critics at gallery openings. My hands still smelled like turpentine in regret. Maya appeared in the doorway, holding coffee like a peace offering. You look like death. Feel worse. I sat up, studio tilting slightly. Margaret summoned me. I know, I'm driving. She handed me the cup, her sculptor's hand steady where mine shook. And Clara? Julian's going to be there too. The coffee tasted like battery acid. Of course he is. We drove through morning traffic in Maya's paint-splattered van, past galleries and coffee shops where my reputation was probably being dissected over lattes. My phone kept buzzing. I turned it off. For what it's worth, Maya said at a red light, that photo of you throwing wine looks kind of badass. Great. My epitaph can read, she had good aim. Could be worse. She accelerated through the intersection. You could have missed. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Then we pulled up to the museum, its marble columns and brass doors radiating institutional judgment, and my stomach resumed its anxious gymnastics. Julian's car was already in the lot, sleek, black, expensive, everything I wasn't. Ready? Maya asked. I wasn't, but I opened the door anyway. Margaret's office smelled like old books and expensive coffee. Julian sat in one of the leather chairs facing her desk, his back rigid, the wine-stained shirt replaced with fresh linen. He didn't turn when I entered, just stared straight ahead like I was a distraction he refused to acknowledge. Sit, Margaret said, not unkind, just exhausted. I took the chair farthest from Julian. The office walls displayed photographs of museum galas, exhibitions, important people shaking hands with other important people. The kind of career I'd wanted before Julian's review taught me to want smaller things. Margaret set her phone on the desk. The screen showed last night's photo. Me, mid-throw, face twisted with 3 years of rage. Julian, wine exploding across his chest like a Jackson Pollock. 37,000 likes. Climbing. This, Margaret said, is a disaster. Neither of us spoke. The silence stretched like pulled taffy. Do you know who funds this museum's emerging artist program? She didn't wait for an answer. Richard Caldwell, 78 years old, conservative, believes art should inspire, not scandalize. He called me at 6 this morning asking why his $500,000 grant is sponsoring public brawls. My throat closed. That grant was funding my upcoming solo show. 3 months of work. My chance to prove I was more than pretty paintings. I apologized, Julian said. His first words since I'd arrived. Measured, controlled. The incident, Margaret interrupted, is trending on 3 continents. Art blogs are having a field day. The Critic and the Artist. A love story or war. They're turning you into entertainment. Love story. The words made my skin crawl. Richard is threatening to pull funding unless we fix this. Margaret leaned back, studying us like we were problematic installations. Which is why I'm offering you both a solution. I don't want, I started. You'll create a collaborative artwork, she continued. Together, joint exhibition in 30 days. Meanwhile, you'll attend 5 high-profile events as a couple. Convince the art world that last night was passion, not hatred. That you're not enemies, but rather 2 brilliant minds whose intensity occasionally overwhelms them. The office temperature dropped 10 degrees. Julian's hands gripped the armrests. You're asking us to fake a relationship. I'm asking you to save your careers. Margaret's voice sharpened. Clara, without this grant, your solo show is canceled. Julian, your magazine is considering termination for attending an event specifically to antagonize an artist. You're both brilliant and both unemployed if you don't fix this. There has to be another way, I said. My voice sounded small. There isn't. She opened a folder, slid contracts across the desk. 5 public appearances, 1 collaborative piece, 30 days. You'll be compensated. The museum maintains its funding. Everyone wins. Except us, Julian muttered. Margaret's expression softened slightly. You wrote that review 3 years ago, Julian. Maybe it's time to see if you were right about her potential. She looked at me. And Clara, maybe it's time to stop playing it safe. The contract sat between us like landmines. Outside, the city continued existing. People made art without drama. Critics wrote reviews without destroying careers. Normal people lived normal lives. I wasn't normal, neither was Julian, and Margaret knew it. You have 24 hours to decide, she said. After that, I tell Richard the collaboration is off, and you both face the consequences. Julian stood first, left without looking at me. The door closed with quiet finality. I stared at the contract, at my name printed in neat type, at the future I was about to sign away. Maya was waiting in the hallway. Well, we're either saving our careers, I said, or I'm about to make everything so much worse. Absolutely not, Julian's voice echoed in the marble hallway outside Margaret's office. He'd made it 10 feet before turning back, his control cracking like old varnish. This is absurd. I'd followed him out, contract in hand, my own protest building. You think I want this? You ruined my life. I wrote a review. You ruined your own work by chasing commercial appeal instead of artistic integrity. There it was, the familiar sting. I stepped closer, ignoring Maya's warning sound behind me. You have no idea what that review did. I couldn't paint for 6 months, couldn't look at a canvas without seeing your words. Technically competent, but soulless. You killed something in me. His gray eyes fixed on mine. For a moment, something shifted in his expression, something that looked almost like regret. Then his jaw set. If your confidence was that fragile, maybe you weren't ready for honest criticism. Honest? The word tasted like poison. You eviscerated me in print because, why? I never understood. We'd never even met. Because your thesis show was brilliant. The admission came out sharp, unwilling, raw and brave in everything good art should be. Then you graduated and started painting what rich people wanted to hang in their foyers. You betrayed your own talent. The hallway tilted. So you destroyed me to help me? I told the truth about what you'd become. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous gesture that humanized him for one heartbeat. What you do with that truth isn't my responsibility. Margaret appeared in her doorway. This is exactly the passion that photograph captured. Channel it into art instead of arguments, and we have a solution. I'm not doing this, Julian said. Find another critic. You're the only critic who matters to Clara's narrative. Margaret crossed her arms. The contracts include non-compete clauses. If you refuse, you'll be blacklisted from reviewing in this city for 5 years. Clara, your solo show contract has a publicity clause. This scandal violates it. You'll owe the gallery $20,000 in damages. My stomach dropped. $20,000. I didn't have $20. Julian's hand flexed at his side. You're blackmailing us. I'm offering you an opportunity, Margaret's voice softened. You're both talented, both stubborn, both currently unemployed if you walk away. Or you can spend 30 days proving that art is bigger than ego. Maya touched my elbow. Can we talk? Privately? I let her pull me aside, down the hallway to where museum guards couldn't hear us dissecting my life. You know you have to do this, Maya said quietly. $20,000, Clara. Your studio rent is already 2 months behind. I can't spend 30 days with him. I can't create art with someone who thinks I'm a sellout. Maybe he has a point. She held up a hand before I could protest. Your thesis work was incredible, dark and honest and yours. What you're making now, she trailed off, diplomatic, pays bills, I finished. Barely. She squeezed my arm. Maybe this is your chance to remember who you were before that review. Before you got scared. Back down the hall, Julian was still arguing with Margaret. His voice carried, sharp with frustration, and something else. Something exhausted. I thought about my studio, the paintings I'd made at 3 a.m. and hidden because they were too raw, too real. The person I'd been before I learned to make art that didn't offend anyone. Before Julian Cross taught me to be afraid. I need 24 hours, I told Maya. Smart, she smiled. Use them to find a way to not kill him. We left through the side exit, past galleries of beautiful art made by people who'd never thrown wine at their critics. My phone buzzed back to life in the parking lot. 37,000 likes had become 42,000. The comments section was a war zone of opinions about my mental state. At the van, Maya paused. You know what the crazy part is? What? In that photo, you look more alive than you have in years. She climbed into the driver's seat. Maybe working with your enemy is exactly what your art needs. I got in, contract crumpled in my fist, and tried not to think about how right she might be. Paint fumes and silence. My studio at midnight felt like a confessional. I sat on the floor surrounded by 3 years of careful, controlled artwork. Pretty colors, balanced compositions, pieces that would never offend anyone or mean anything. The laptop was open to the review. I hadn't read it in 2 years, but memory didn't need refreshing. Clara Bennett's thesis exhibition promised a bold new voice in contemporary abstract expressionism. Her piece, Dissolution, captured the raw chaos of grief with unflinching honesty. But her first postgraduate show reveals a troubling evolution. The bold voice has softened into whisper. The raw chaos has been tamed into decoration. Bennett's technical skill remains evident. Her color theory is impeccable, her composition balanced. But skill without soul is simply craft. These new works feel calculated to please rather than provoke. They hang on walls without demanding anything of the viewer. In attempting to be everything to everyone, Bennett has become nothing to anyone. One hopes she remembers, before it's too late, that great art requires courage. Julian Cross, Art Quarterly Review. I'd read those words on a Tuesday morning, sitting in a coffee shop, excited to see my first professional review. The piece had gone viral in art circles. Gallery owners had called asking if I was okay. Other artists had offered sympathy that felt like pity. My phone had rung while I was still processing. The gallery owner, apologetic. 3 commissioned pieces canceled. Collectors nervous about the controversy. I'd gone home and stared at my paintings, saw them the way Julian described. Pretty, safe, soulless. That night I'd painted something real, something angry, 3 hours of pure emotion, the way I used to create. It was probably the best work I'd done since graduation. I sold it the next day for studio rent, told myself I'd make more, but the courage never came back. Just the fear that Julian was right, that I'd betrayed my own talent for survival. The door creaked. Maya letting herself in with the spare key. You're sitting in the dark. That's never good. She flipped the light switch. Talk to me. What if he's right? I gestured at the paintings lining the walls. What if everything I've made is just expensive decoration? Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat beside me, her shoulder pressing against mine. You want the truth? Not really, but tell me anyway. Your thesis work made me cry. I'm talking actual tears in a gallery, Clara. You captured something raw about losing your dad, about grief that doesn't fit into neat stages. It was brave. She paused. This stuff? It's good. It's professional. But it's not you. I had to eat, Maya. I had to pay rent. Bold doesn't pay the bills. I know, she squeezed my hand. But maybe this collaboration is your chance to be bold again. With a safety net. I looked at the contract on my workbench. 30 days, 5 public events, 1 collaborative artwork. The idea of working with Julian made my skin crawl. But the idea of continuing like this, making art that meant nothing, felt worse. He called my thesis work brilliant, I said quietly. In that hallway, he said it was brilliant. That man is complicated. Maya stood, pulling me up with her. But he sees you, the real you, even if he's an asshole about it. My phone screen showed the time, 1:47 a.m., 22 hours left to decide. I walked to the storage corner, to the canvases I'd turned facing the wall, the angry piece I'd painted that night, other attempts at honesty I'd been too scared to show, all of them raw, unpolished, real. If I do this, I said, I'm not making pretty pictures for him. Good, Maya smiled. Show him what he's been missing. I picked up my phone, found Margaret's email, typed 3 words. I'll do it. The response came back within minutes. Coffee shop address, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., both of you. I forwarded it to Julian. No message, just the time and place. His reply appeared 30 seconds later. Fine, 1 word, but it felt like stepping off a cliff. The coffee shop was intentionally neutral territory. Small, independent, the kind of place where artists sketched in corners and baristas knew everyone's order. Morning light filtered through front windows, turning espresso machines into brass sculpture. I arrived at 8:55 a.m., ordered black coffee, claimed a table near the back where fewer people could witness this disaster. Julian appeared at exactly 9 a.m., punctual, professional. He'd traded the wine-stained formality for dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look like storm clouds. He ordered something complicated, paid without looking at the register, and sat across from me without asking permission. Ground rules, he said. No greeting, just business. I wrapped my hands around my cup. I wasn't aware you got to make the rules. Then we'll negotiate. He pulled out a tablet, stylus poised. First, creative control. How do we split decisions? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected more arguments, more analysis of my failures, not pragmatism. Alternating, I said slowly. You choose the concept, I choose the execution, or vice versa. He made a note. Second, publicity. We need a consistent story for the press. How do we go from enemies to collaborators? The truth, I suggested. Museum forced us. We're professionals making the best of it. Too cynical. The public wants romance. He looked up. Or at least the possibility of romance. My stomach twisted. I'm not kissing you for cameras. I'm not asking you to. Something flickered across his face. Amusement? But we need to appear comfortable together. Hand-holding, shared glances, the kind of casual intimacy that suggests a real relationship. I hate this already. Yes, well, he returned to the tablet. That makes 2 of us. Third, workspace. Your studio or neutral ground? I thought about my studio, my space, filled with my failures and my attempts at courage. The idea of Julian seeing it, judging it, made my hands shake. My studio, I said, because hiding felt worse than vulnerability. But you don't touch anything without permission. Agreed, he paused. Fourth, the review. I assume you want an apology. The word hung between us. I studied his expression, looking for sarcasm or manipulation. Found only exhaustion that mirrored my own. Do you actually regret writing it? I asked. I regret the consequences. His voice was quiet, careful, not the content. Then I don't want an apology, I straightened. I want you to help me make something that proves you wrong. Surprise crossed his face, brief, genuine. Then his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. That's significantly more interesting than an apology. Good. I pulled out my own phone. Now my rules. 1. No more public reviews of my work until after this collaboration. I don't need running commentary. Fair. 2. If I ask you to leave my studio, You leave. No arguments. He nodded. 3, I continued, gaining momentum. We tell the truth to each other, about the art, about what's working or not. I'm tired of pretty lies. I don't traffic in pretty lies. His expression was unreadable. As you're well aware. Then we might actually survive this. I stood. Margaret emailed the event schedule. First gala is Friday. That's 4 days to look like we tolerate each other. Julian gathered his tablet. Tolerance might be ambitious. Let's aim for civility. Deal. I held out my hand. Professional. Clinical. He looked at it for a long moment, then shook it. His grip was firm. Warm. The handshake lasted 1 second too long. Studio address? He asked. I wrote it on a napkin. My hands were surprisingly steady. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., bring coffee and low expectations. I only have one of those things. He pocketed the napkin. See you tomorrow, Clara. He left first. I stayed, finishing coffee that had gone cold, watching morning traffic through the window. Somewhere in the city, Margaret was probably celebrating. Maya was definitely grinning, and I was about to let my enemy into my most private space. My phone buzzed. Maya. How'd it go? I typed back. I think I just agreed to 30 days of torture. Her response was immediate. Or 30 days of becoming the artist you used to be. Either way, I'm buying wine for after. I paid the bill, stepped into morning sunshine, tried not to think about Julian's expression when he'd said my thesis work was brilliant, tried not to wonder what it would feel like to make him say it again. He arrived at 10:15 a.m., carrying expensive coffee and low expectations. I'd spent the previous evening stress cleaning my studio, which meant shoving 3 months of chaos into closets and pretending I had organizational systems. The space still smelled like turpentine and ambition. You're late, I said, opening the door. Traffic. Julian handed me a cup. Oat milk latte. Maya said it's your preference. The fact that he'd asked Maya made my defenses falter. You talked to Maya? I wanted to get this right. He stepped inside, and I watched his gaze travel across my studio. Past the commercial pieces stacked against walls, the north-facing windows I'd chosen specifically for light, the paint-stained floors that mapped 3 years of careful creation. His expression revealed nothing. Professional assessment. No judgment I could read. This is nice, he said finally. Good bones. But? No but. He set his bag on the clean workbench. I'm not here to critique your space. I'm here to make art. The statement caught me off guard. Again. I kept expecting the Julian from the review, the one who dissected my failures with surgical precision. This version felt different. Focused. Right, art. I pulled out the folder Margaret had given us. Requirements, timeline, exhibition parameters. We need to decide on a concept, something that speaks to both our strengths. Julian leaned against the workbench. What are you good at? Honestly. Color theory. Emotional abstraction when I'm not playing it safe. Texture work. I paused. What are you good at besides destroying people in print? Understanding artistic intention. No smile, just fact. I'm good at seeing what an artist is trying to say, even when they're afraid to say it clearly. The air in the studio shifted, became charged with something I couldn't name. So we make something about fear, I heard myself say, about the gap between intention and execution, between what we want to create and what we think we're allowed to. Julian's eyes sharpened. That's good. That's actually brilliant. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm remembering why your thesis work mattered. He pulled out his tablet. Duality, public versus private self. The art we show versus the art we hide. We could build the piece in layers. Transparent layers, I interrupted, ideas sparking. Resin and acrylic, so viewers can see the underpainting, the original intention beneath the polished surface. Yes, he was sketching now, quick lines, abstract shapes. We show the evolution, the compromises, the moments where courage became caution. I grabbed my sketchbook, started drawing beside him. Our hands moved in parallel, ideas building on each other without conscious coordination. This was the part I'd forgotten, the pure creative flow before fear intervened. Scale? Julian asked. Big, 6 feet by 8 feet. Large enough that viewers have to step back to see the full image, but close enough to see every layer of decision-making. Materials? I have resin supplier contacts, multiple viscosities. We can create depth variations. My hand moved faster. Color palette? You choose. Color is your strength. He glanced at my sketch. But make it honest. No pretty pastels meant to soothe. Use the colors you use at 2 a.m. when no one's watching. The reference felt intimate, invasive, like he'd seen me in those raw moments. How do you know I paint at 2 a.m.? I asked. Because that's when artists make real work. His voice was quiet. When the market isn't watching, when it's just you and the canvas and the truth you're afraid to admit in daylight. My breath caught. The studio fell silent except for street noise filtering through windows. Julian set down his stylus. I should go, let you process. We can refine the concept tomorrow. Wait, I wasn't sure why I stopped him. Why did you really write that review? He was quiet for a long moment, then, because watching you betray your talent felt personal, like watching someone with a gift choose mediocrity. It made me angry. You didn't know me. Why would you care? I didn't know you, he agreed, but I knew your art. And art that good deserves an artist brave enough to defend it. He picked up his bag. See you tomorrow, Clara. The door closed behind him. I stood in the center of my studio, surrounded by 3 years of careful work, and wondered if Julian Cross saw me better than I saw myself. My phone buzzed. Julian. Tomorrow we start the real work. Bring courage. I looked at the storage corner, at the paintings I'd hidden, the raw work I'd been too afraid to show. Type back, already here. He was early the next morning, not 15 minutes late, but 30 minutes early, standing outside my studio door with coffee and an expression that suggested he'd been waiting a while. His gray sweater matched the overcast sky behind him, making him look like a figure from one of my monochrome studies. Something in my chest tightened. Nervousness or anticipation, or both. I couldn't sleep, he admitted when I opened the door. Kept thinking about the layering technique. Me too. I took the offered coffee. Our fingers brushed. Brief, electric. I pulled back too quickly, and he noticed. Inside, I'd cleared the main workspace, covered the floor with canvas drop cloths, set up the large frame we'd need for the 6x8 piece. The studio felt different with Julian in it, smaller, more charged with possibility. He walked directly to the storage corner, to the paintings I'd turned facing the wall. Can I? His hand hovered near the closest canvas. Every instinct screamed to say no. These pieces were mine, private, the work I made when no one was performing. But this collaboration required honesty, and honesty required vulnerability. Fine, I said, tried to sound casual, failed. Julian turned the first canvas. My angry painting from 3 years ago, raw, violent, reds and blacks clashing like open wounds. He stared at it for 30 seconds, didn't speak, just looked. Then the second canvas, a study of grief in blues and grays. The texture work I'd done while processing my father's death, building up layers of gesso until the surface resembled scar tissue. Clara, his voice was rough. Why are these hidden? Because they don't sell. Because they make people uncomfortable. Because they're too much. I wrapped my arms around myself. Take your pick. He turned 3 more canvases, each one more raw than the last. My real work, the art I made when I forgot to be afraid. These are what I saw in your thesis show. He looked at me. This is who you are as an artist. Why would you hide this? Your review was about the work you showed publicly, not this. He gestured at the hidden paintings. This is the artist I wanted to see more of. This is brilliant. The word hit differently in person. In print, it had felt like mockery. In his voice, it sounded like recognition. You called my public work soulless, I said quietly. These pieces have too much soul. I didn't know how to exist in between. Julian set down the canvas carefully, walked to the workbench. When he spoke, his back was to me. I was too harsh in that review. I stand by the content, but the delivery was cruel. I wanted to shock you back to authenticity, but I didn't consider the cost. Is that an apology? It's acknowledgement, he turned, and a promise. For the next 30 days, I want to see this artist, the one who hides her real work because it's too honest. That's who I want to collaborate with. My throat felt tight. What if I can't access her anymore? What if she's gone? She's not. He pointed at the canvases. She's right here, just scared. The truth of it settled in my chest like weight, like permission. Okay, I moved to the large frame. Then let's make something that scares us both. We worked for 6 hours straight. Julian sketched concepts while I mixed paints, testing color combinations that felt dangerous. Deep crimsons, bruised purples. The colors I used in those 2 a.m. sessions when honesty came easier than daylight. Around 3 p.m., my stomach growled loud enough for him to hear. He looked up from his tablet. Food? Thai place on the corner. They deliver. We ordered pad thai and continued working while we waited. The conversation shifted from art to background. I learned he'd wanted to be a painter before his father convinced him criticism was more practical. He learned I'd almost quit art school sophomore year because my dad got sick. The food arrived. We ate standing up, discussing resin ratios between bites. It felt strange, natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. Can I ask you something? I set down my container. Why art criticism? Why spend your life analyzing other people's work instead of making your own? He was quiet for a moment. Because I'm better at seeing art than making it. My paintings were technically sound but empty. I was a skilled craftsman without a voice. He met my eyes. The opposite of you. I'm not sure I have a voice anymore. Then we'll find it. He stood, gathering food containers. That's what this collaboration is, an excavation. We're digging through all the layers you built up to protect yourself until we find the artist underneath. The words should have felt invasive. Instead, they felt like relief. Tomorrow we start the underpainting, Julian said at the door. Bring everything you've been afraid to put on canvas. Bring the messy, the ugly, the true. After he left, I stood in the studio surrounded by my hidden work. For the first time in 3 years, I wondered if Julian's review had been cruel to be kind, if he'd seen the artist I could become and had been angry watching me settle for less. My phone buzzed. Maya, how's Operation Enemy Art going? I took a photo of the cleared workspace, the hidden canvases now facing out, the color tests that looked like emotion instead of decoration. Sent it with, I think I'm remembering how to be brave. The email arrived at 11 p.m. while I was researching resin techniques. Margaret's subject line, your publicity schedule, read immediately. I opened it with growing dread. 5 events in 30 days. But seeing them listed made the reality hit differently. Event 1, Charity Gala, this Friday, 3 days away. Black tie required, press interviews mandatory. Expectation, arrive together, appear affectionate, present unified artistic vision. Event 2, Gallery opening, week 2. Feature, other emerging artists. Task, publicly discuss collaboration progress, withstand questions about relationship. Event 3, Artistic Lecture Panel, Week 3. Topic, Creative Partnerships in Modern Art. Expectation, joint presentation, appear mutually supportive. Event 4, Museum Donor Dinner, Week 4. Private event with Richard Caldwell present. Task: convince primary benefactor that collaboration is genuine and valuable. Event 5. Final exhibition opening. Day 30. Unveil completed collaborative piece. Press conference about journey from conflict to partnership. The final note made my stomach drop. Attached are talking points for press interviews. Please memorize and stay consistent. Richard Caldwell will be watching closely. M. I forwarded it to Julian without comment. His response came within minutes. This is worse than I thought. Me. Black tie on Friday. You own a tuxedo? Julian. Unfortunately, you? Me. I'll find something. Julian. We need to practice. Me. Practice what? Lying? Julian. Practice looking like we don't hate each other. The phone rang. Julian calling. This is insane, he said without preamble. Donor dinner? Press conference? This isn't collaboration, it's performance art. Welcome to what I've been telling you. I close my laptop. We can still back out. And lose everything we've started? Silence. Then, the underpainting we discussed today. That concept is good, Clara. Really good. Walking away now means it never gets made. He was right. The past 2 days had sparked something I thought I'd lost. The excitement of real creation. The possibility of making art that mattered. So we do this, I said. All of it. The galas and the lies and the casual affection, he finished. Yes, but Clara. What? We should probably practice before Friday. Holding hands, standing close, looking like we tolerate each other's presence. The suggestion made my skin flush. That's ridiculous. That's practical. His voice was calm, professional. If we're uncomfortable on Friday, the press will notice. Richard Caldwell will notice. This only works if we can sell the illusion. Fine. I hated that he was right. Tomorrow, after we work on the underpainting. Tomorrow, he agreed. And Clara, wear something you'd wear on a date. We need to practice in costume. He hung up before I could argue. I stared at my closet. At 3 years of carefully professional clothes, nothing appropriate for fake dating my enemy. My phone buzzed with Maya's contact info coming through from Julian, a note attached. She volunteered to help with wardrobe, said you'd need backup. I called Maya immediately. Did Julian Cross just send me your number? He did, and I already have ideas. She sounded delighted. Emergency shopping tomorrow after work? We need to make you look like a woman who could plausibly date an emotionally constipated art critic. I hate everything about this. Liar. I saw your face yesterday when you talked about the collaboration. You're more excited than you've been in years. She paused. And I saw the way he looked at your hidden paintings. That man sees you, Clara, the real you. He's my enemy. He's your creative partner for 30 days. Maybe stop fighting it and see where it goes. After we hung up, I read Margaret's talking points, the story they'd crafted for us. Clara and Julian's passionate exchange at the gallery opening reflected the intensity both bring to their work. What appeared as conflict was actually two brilliant minds challenging each other toward greater artistic heights. Their collaboration emerged naturally from mutual respect and a shared commitment to pushing contemporary art forward. It was fiction, pretty fiction designed to save careers and maintain funding. But as I looked at the underpainting sketches on my workbench, at the color test that Julian had called fearless, I wondered if the fiction was closer to truth than either of us wanted to admit. My phone lit up one more time. Julian, see you at 10 a.m. Bring courage and whatever you'd wear on a first date. I typed back, already regretting this. His response was immediate. That makes 2 of us. Good night, Clara. I stared at his name on my screen. 3 days until we had to perform affection for cameras. 30 days until we finished a collaboration that already felt more honest than 3 years of safe art. Outside my studio window, the city glittered with lights from people living simpler lives. I thought about my hidden paintings, about Julian saying they were brilliant, about the possibility that fighting with your creative equal might be exactly what great art required. Then I went to bed and dreamed about resin layers in gray eyes and falling without knowing if anyone would catch me. The boutique smelled like expensive fabric and judgment. Maya had dragged me here Thursday afternoon, one day before the gala, claiming my closet contained nothing suitable for fake dating an art critic. She was right, but I resented her accuracy. Try this. She thrust a midnight blue dress at me. Silk. Backless. The kind of thing that required confidence I didn't own. I emerged from the fitting room feeling exposed. The dress clung in ways my usual paint-stained clothes never did. Maya circled me like a sculptor assessing clay. Perfect. Julian won't know what hit him. Julian isn't supposed to be hit. He's supposed to tolerate my presence for press photos. I turned to the mirror. The woman staring back looked unfamiliar, polished, vulnerable. You look beautiful, Maya said quietly, like the Clara from before you started hiding. My throat tightened. How much is this dress? Already paid for. Julian's credit card. He called ahead. He what? Heat flooded my face. Anger and something else. Maya held up her phone, showing a text from Julian. Whatever she needs, no budget, make her feel powerful. JC. The message made my chest ache in complicated ways. He's being practical, I said. We need to look like a couple who can afford these events. Sure, that's definitely what this is. Maya's smile was infuriating. Purely practical. We bought the dress, and shoes, and a small clutch that cost more than my monthly groceries. Walking out, weighted with shopping bags and confusion, I texted Julian. You didn't have to do that. His response came immediately. Yes, I did. See you tomorrow. Studio. 2 p.m. We practice. My stomach flipped. Practice, right. Looking comfortable together. Holding hands with the man who destroyed my confidence. Simple. That night, I hung the blue dress in my studio where I could see it. A reminder that tomorrow, I'd have to become someone else. Someone who could smile at Julian Cross and make the world believe it meant something. The gala descended on me like weather. Julian's car arrived at my studio at 7 p.m. sharp, sleek and black and entirely too expensive. He emerged wearing a tuxedo that should have been illegal, all sharp lines and understated elegance. His gray eyes caught mine through the windshield. My hands shook. I smoothed the blue silk one more time and opened the door. Clara. His voice was different, softer. He took in the dress and something crossed his face too quickly to read. You look terrified, I supplied. Stunning, he offered his arm. Ready to lie to important people? Not even slightly. The gallery hosting the charity event glowed with wealth. Chandeliers cast golden light over sculptures and paintings and people whose jewelry could fund my studio for years. Camera flashes erupted when we entered together. Julian's hand warm on my lower back, guiding me through the crowd with surprising gentleness. Smile, he murmured against my ear. You're supposed to be happy to be here. I'm supposed to be a lot of things, but I smiled anyway. Let him pull me closer, felt the cameras capture what looked like intimacy. A reporter materialized immediately. Julian Cross, Clara Bennett, the art world has been buzzing about your collaboration. Tell us, how did enemies become partners? Julian's hand tightened slightly on my waist. We'd rehearsed this, memorized Margaret's talking points. But standing here, pressed against him with cameras watching, the script felt inadequate. We were never really enemies, Julian said smoothly. Just two artists who communicate through passion rather than politeness. The gallery incident was simply that passion overflowing. And now you're creating together? The reporter's eyes gleamed with gossip hunger. We are. I found my voice, steadier than expected. Turns out fighting about art is just another form of collaboration. We challenge each other toward better work. How romantic, the reporter beamed. And are you two? We're focused on the art, Julian interrupted. Professional but warm. Everything else is private. The non-answer was perfect. Confirmed nothing. Implied everything. The reporter looked satisfied and moved on. Good job, Julian whispered once we were alone. You're a natural liar. Years of pretending my art was good enough taught me well. His expression tightened. Clara. But then Richard Caldwell was approaching, Margaret at his side, and we had to perform again. Shake hands, accept compliments, pretend the man's funding wasn't the only thing keeping our careers alive. I'm impressed, Richard said, his eyes sharp despite his age. When Margaret told me about your collaboration, I was skeptical. But seeing you together, he smiled. Chemistry is rare. Don't waste it. We won't, sir, I promised. Julian's thumb traced circles on my hip. Probably unconscious. Definitely distracting. I leaned into him slightly, selling the illusion, and felt his sharp inhale against my hair. The rest of the evening blurred. More press, more performances. Dancing, Julian's hands spanning my back, his body close enough that I could feel his heartbeat through expensive fabric. He smelled like cedar and something crisp I couldn't name. You're good at this, I said during a slow song. Our third dance. His hand had migrated from professional distance to something more possessive. So are you. His voice was rough. Almost like you don't actually hate me. Almost, but the word felt hollow. Because somewhere between the practiced touches and staged intimacy, something had shifted. The hatred felt distant. What remained felt dangerous. When the song ended, Julian kept holding me for 3 seconds too long. His eyes met mine, searching for something I wasn't ready to name. We should, I started. Clara Bennett, a photographer interrupted. One more photo? Julian, kiss her cheek, for the morning edition. My heart stopped. We'd discussed this, agreed on boundaries, but Julian was already leaning in, his lips brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness, his hand cradling my face like I was something precious. The camera flashed, captured what looked like love. Sorry, Julian whispered, still close. Should have asked first. It's fine, we're performing. But my voice shook, because it hadn't felt like performance. It had felt like truth. We left at midnight. The drive back to my studio was quiet, charged with things neither of us could say. Julian walked me to my door, stood under the streetlight like a figure from a painting. You did well tonight, he said. So did you, very convincing. Was I? His eyes held mine. Convincing? The question hung between us, loaded with implications. I should have said yes, should have kept the boundaries clear. Instead, I heard myself whisper, I don't know anymore. Julian nodded slowly. Good night, Clara. Lock your door. He waited until I was inside. Safe. I watched from the window as his car disappeared into the city and wondered when exactly I'd stop being able to tell the difference between performance and reality. He arrived at my studio the next morning still wearing last night's tuxedo shirt, sleeves rolled up, tie gone. His hair was disheveled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He looked human, breakable, real. Did you sleep? I asked, unlocking the door. No, kept thinking about the underpainting. He held up a tablet showing sketches he'd made at 3 a.m. I think I know how to structure the layers. Inside, I made coffee while he talked through his vision. How we could use the resin to create actual depth, transparent layers showing the evolution of a single concept. The hidden painting underneath representing raw intention. Each subsequent layer showing the compromises made to make art acceptable. It's a metaphor for both of us, Julian said, spreading sketches across my workbench. Your journey from brave to safe. Mine from wanting to create to criticizing others' creation. All the layers we build to protect ourselves from vulnerability. The concept stole my breath. It was good, devastatingly good, the kind of art that would force viewers to examine their own compromises. We'd need to expose ourselves, I said quietly, really expose ourselves, use our actual artistic wounds as material. Yes, he met my eyes. That's what makes it powerful and terrifying. We worked for 6 hours without stopping. I mixed the first layer of paint, raw, aggressive colors representing my thesis work. The art I'd made before fear intervened. Julian sketched the composition, his precise lines balancing my chaos. Around 2 p.m., he pulled off his shirt. Too hot, too focused to care. I pretended not to notice the lean muscle, the paint smudge on his collarbone from leaning too close to wet canvas. Pretended my hands were steady. "Tell me about your thesis show," Julian said, still sketching. "What were you feeling when you made that work?" I thought back to 4 years ago. My father, newly dead. Grief raw as open wounds. Art, the only language that made sense. I was angry. The admission came easier than expected. At death, at unfairness, at the fact that grief doesn't fit into neat stages or acceptable timeframes. I painted like I was fighting something. Every brushstroke was violence against the idea that loss should be quiet. Julian's hand stilled. That's what I saw. That fury, that refusal to make pain pretty. And then you wrote that I'd lost it. No, he set down the stylus, turned to face me fully. I wrote that you'd hidden it. There's a difference. The anger was still there in your new work, Clara, but you'd caged it, domesticated it, made it safe for people who wanted decoration instead of truth. So you tried to shock me back to anger by destroying my confidence? I tried to remind you that you had teeth, that you knew how to bite. He moved closer, paint-stained and honest and too close. Did it work? I thought about the painting I'd made that night, the hidden canvases stacked in my storage corner. 3 years of safely caged fury. You didn't give me permission to be angry, I said. You made me afraid. There's a difference. Something like regret crossed his face. I know. I thought harsh truth would crack your armor. Instead, it just made you build thicker walls. So what now? I gestured at the underpainting taking shape. We make art about our mutual damage and call it collaboration? We make art about transformation, Julian corrected. About the space between the artist you were and the one you're becoming. About whether it's possible to reclaim rage after you've learned to be polite. The honesty cut deep, made breathing difficult. I turned back to my paints, mixing darker tones, channeling the conversation into color. For what it's worth, Julian said quietly, your anger was never what I wanted to destroy. I just wanted you to aim it at something that mattered, including me, if necessary. I painted a violent slash of crimson across the canvas, let my hand move with old fury, felt something unlock in my chest. Well, I said, stepping back to assess the mark, congratulations. You're officially my muse for rage. Julian's laugh was unexpected, genuine. It transformed his face into something younger, less guarded. I'll take it, he said. Better to be a muse for rage than irrelevant. We worked until midnight. The underpainting grew, raw and honest and more real than anything I'd made in years. Julian watched me work with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but felt like recognition, like being truly seen for the first time. This is good, Clara, he said when I finally set down my brush. This is what I hoped you'd find again. We're finding it together. The admission felt vulnerable, true. He nodded slowly. Yes, we are. Then quieter. I should go, before I say something we're not ready for. After he left, I stood in front of the underpainting, saw my rage and his precision woven together, saw the beginning of something that might matter. My phone buzzed. Julian, thank you for trusting me with your anger. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, thank you for seeing it. The gallery opening Wednesday night was supposed to be low-key, Supporting other emerging artists, networking, simple. But Thomas Brennan made simple impossible. Clara Bennett. His voice dripped with false warmth. Still making pretty pictures for pretty people? Julian's hand tightened on mine. We'd arrived together, playing the couple role even at casual events, building the narrative, but Thomas's tone made Julian's professional mask crack. Thomas, I said evenly, still failing to get gallery representation? His smile sharpened. At least I have artistic integrity. Not everyone sells out for commercial appeal. That's enough, Julian said. His voice carried the same sharp precision he'd used in his reviews. You want to discuss Clara's work? Let's discuss it properly. Thomas turned, clearly not expecting pushback. Julian Cross, defending Bennett now? How the mighty critic has fallen. I'm defending good art from lazy criticism. Julian released my hand, stepped forward. Every eye in the gallery turned toward us. You call Clara's recent work commercial, but what you really mean is accessible. You've confused difficulty with depth, Thomas. Not everything that's hard to understand is automatically profound. Clara's thesis work had teeth, Thomas argued. Now she makes wallpaper. Her thesis work had raw emotion. Julian's voice was clinical, devastating, which she still possesses. She simply chooses how and when to deploy it. That's called artistic control. Something you might learn if you spent less time criticizing others' success and more time developing your own voice. The gallery fell silent. I watched Julian defend me with the same eloquence he'd once used to destroy me. Saw him wield language like a weapon on my behalf instead of against me. Thomas's face flushed. You're only defending her because you're sleeping together. I'm defending her because her worst work is still better than your best attempt. Julian's tone could have cut glass. And whether or not we're sleeping together is none of your business and irrelevant to her talent. He took my hand again, pulled me toward the exit. We left Thomas sputtering in our wake. Outside, city lights reflected off wet pavement. Rain threatened. Julian was still tense, jaw tight with residual anger. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly. Yes, I did. He turned to face me. He was wrong. About your work. About you. Someone needed to say it. Even though you agree with him, that my public work isn't as good as my thesis? I agree that you've been holding back. Not that you're a sellout. His hands found my shoulders. There's a difference between protecting yourself and betraying your talent. You've been doing the first. Thomas doesn't understand nuance. Rain started, soft, warm. Julian pulled me under a gallery awning. Thank you, I said, for defending me, for seeing the difference. I always saw it, Clara. I just didn't know how to tell you without sounding cruel. He reached up, brushed rain from my cheek. I'm better with written words than spoken ones. Better at criticism than kindness. You were kind tonight. My voice was barely audible. You were perfect. His thumb traced my cheekbone. The same gesture from the gala photo, but slower now, deliberate. His eyes searched mine for permission I didn't know how to give or deny. We should get you home, he said finally, before this rain gets worse. But neither of us moved. We stood under the awning, rain drumming around us, the space between our bodies charged with everything we weren't saying. His hands still cradled my face. My heart hammered against my ribs. Julian, don't. His voice was rough. Don't say whatever you're about to say. Not yet. Not until we're sure. Sure of what? That this isn't just performance. That what's happening between us is real. He stepped back, breaking contact. I won't touch you like this, look at you like this, if it's only for cameras. You deserve better than my confusion. The admission cracked something open in my chest, made breathing painful. What if I'm confused too? I whispered. Then we figure it out together. He pulled out his phone, called a car, but carefully, without ruining what we're building. The ride to my studio was quiet. Julian walked me to my door again, stood in the rain like a guardian, waited until I was safe inside. Through my window, I watched him stand in the downpour for 30 seconds before returning to the car. Watched him press his palm against the glass like he was reaching for something just out of range. My phone lit up. Julian, you deserved that defense 3 years ago. I'm sorry it took this long. I typed and deleted 5 responses. Finally sent, better late than never. His reply came instantly. I'm trying to be better. For you. I fell asleep with my phone in my hand, rain drumming against windows, Julian's words echoing through my dreams. Studio, 2 a.m. We'd been working for 14 hours straight, pushing to complete the second layer of our piece. Julian sprawled on my couch, exhausted, shirt stained with resin and regret. I sat on the floor, back against the workbench, too tired to maintain professional distance. Why did you really quit wanting to paint? I asked. The question felt safer in darkness, stripped of pretense. Julian was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I was good but not great, I could execute technique perfectly, but the work had no soul. It was like your commercial pieces, but worse, completely empty, just skill without substance. That's harsh. It's true. He sat up, shadows carving his face into angles. I was 17 when I realized I'd never be the artist I wanted to be. My father was relieved. He'd always thought art was impractical. Criticism felt like compromise, a way to stay close to art without admitting I couldn't make it. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. I'd spent 3 years hating this man, never considered he might understand failure intimately. Is that why you're so hard on other artists? I asked. Because you couldn't be one? Probably. His laugh was bitter. Easier to dissect others' work than face my own inadequacy. Until I saw your thesis show. What about it? You had everything I lacked. Raw emotion, courage, the ability to make technical skill serve the feeling instead of hiding its absence. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. Watching you choose safety after that felt personal, like witnessing someone with a gift actively bury it. So you wrote that review to punish me for having what you didn't? I wrote it hoping you'd prove me wrong. His eyes met mine across the dark studio. I wanted you to create something so undeniably brilliant that it would shut me up, force me to admit you were right and I was just jealous. Instead, I proved you right. For 3 years, yes. He stood, moved to the canvas we'd been working on. But not anymore. This piece, Clara, what we're making together. It's everything I hoped you'd create, everything I couldn't make alone. I joined him at the canvas. Our second layer showed the cracks forming, where raw intention met market pressure, where courage bent toward caution. The resin we'd poured that morning was still curing, creating depth that made earlier layers visible through clouded transparency. I couldn't do this without you, I admitted. Couldn't access this anger, this honesty, without someone pushing me toward it. Then we're even. His shoulder pressed against mine, warm, solid. Because I couldn't make anything meaningful without collaborating with someone who actually has a soul. We stood there in silence, examining our joint creation. Somewhere between enemies and lovers, partners in vulnerability, artists excavating each other's wounds and calling it collaboration. Julian? My voice was small, uncertain. What happens after 30 days, when the performance ends? His hand found mine in the darkness, squeezed once. I don't know, but I know I don't want to stop making art with you. Even if we're not required to pretend anymore? Especially then. He turned to face me fully. Because this, what we're creating, what we're becoming, stopped being pretend around day 3, at least for me. The confession hung between us. Honest, terrifying, true. I should have pulled away, maintained distance, protected myself from the inevitable hurt. Instead, I squeezed his hand back. For me too, I whispered. Morning light found us still in the studio, Julian asleep on the couch, me at the workbench reviewing sketches. The third layer needed planning, precision, but I kept glancing at his sleeping form, at the vulnerability sleep granted him. He woke around 7 a.m., disoriented, beautiful. His gray eyes found me immediately. "Did you sleep?" His voice was rough with exhaustion. "Some," a lie. I'd watched him sleep for the last hour, memorized the way his chest rose and fell, wondered when exactly I'd stopped hating him and started this dangerous falling. He sat up, running hands through disheveled hair. "Coffee?" "Always." We moved around my small kitchen space in comfortable silence. He knew where I kept mugs now, knew I took coffee black with 1 sugar. These small intimacies felt more dangerous than the staged touches for cameras. "We should work on the third layer," Julian said, leaning against the counter. "The compromise phase, where initial vision gets negotiated down to something safer. The part where I become the artist you hated?" I handed him coffee. Our fingers brushed, held longer than necessary. "I never hated you." His eyes were serious, clear. "I hated watching you diminish yourself. There's a difference." We moved back to the canvas, started planning the third layer's composition. Julian reached up to trace a potential line, and I moved to indicate a color placement. And suddenly we were pressed together. Canvas in front, workbench behind, no room to retreat. His hand found my hip, steadied me, or steadied himself, unclear. My heart hammered loud enough he must have heard it. "Clara." My name in his mouth sounded like prayer, like question. I tilted my face up. His gray eyes darkened. His other hand came up to cup my jaw, thumb tracing my bottom lip with devastating gentleness. The studio contracted to just this moment, this breath, this decision. "We shouldn't," he whispered. Even as he leaned closer, even as his forehead pressed against mine. "I know." Even as I gripped his shirt, even as I rose on tiptoes, our lips were centimeters apart, his breath mixed with mine, mint and coffee and possibility, time suspended. Then my studio door burst open. "Clara, I brought bagels and, oh my God!" Maya stood frozen in the doorway. Bagels, coffee carrier, expression of delighted shock. Julian and I sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. My face burned. His composure cracked completely. He started. "Yeah, I gestured vaguely. "Morning, Julian." Maya's grin could have powered the city. "Staying for breakfast?" "I have to. Meetings. Work." He grabbed his bag, nearly knocked over a paint jar, and fled like the studio was on fire. After the door closed, Maya set down bagels and crossed her arms. "So, that was interesting." "Don't," I covered my face. "Please, don't." "You were about to kiss your enemy." She was definitely laughing. "Your sworn enemy who you claimed to hate just 2 weeks ago." It was a moment, proximity, lack of sleep. It was sexual tension you could cut with a palette knife. She handed me coffee. "And the way he looked at you? Clara, that man is gone for you." "We're collaborating. It's complicated." "It's simple." Maya bit into a bagel. "You're falling for each other. The art is just the excuse to be close." I sank onto the couch where Julian had slept. His scent lingered on the cushions, cedar and something uniquely him. "What if you're right?" I whispered. "What if I'm falling for the man who destroyed me? Then maybe he destroyed the version of you that needed destroying." Maya sat beside me. Maybe he saw the real artist underneath and was just trying to help her claw her way back. My phone buzzed. "Julian, sorry for running. That was unprofessional." Me, "Nothing about this is professional anymore." Julian, "No, it's not. Is that okay?" I stared at the message, at the almost kiss still burning on my lips, at the canvas showing our merged vulnerabilities. Me, "I think so. Maybe. I'm terrified." Julian, "Me too. See you tomorrow?" Me, "Tomorrow." Maya read over my shoulder. You know what the best part is? What? In 2 weeks, you've created better art than you have in 3 years. Maybe terror is your medium. I threw a pillow at her, but she wasn't wrong. The art magazine interview happened Friday in a sterile conference room that smelled like anxiety and expensive cologne. Julian arrived first, looking professionally composed in dark jeans and gray button-down. I came 5 minutes late, still flustered from our almost kiss 3 days ago. We hadn't talked about it, just dove back into work with desperate focus, creating layer 3, avoiding eye contact, pretending our entire collaboration wasn't balanced on the edge of something terrifying. The reporter, Sarah Chen from Contemporary Art Quarterly, had calculating eyes and a recorder she set between us like a weapon. So, she began, smiling like a shark, tell me how this collaboration really started. Julian's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once. Solidarity or warning. Margaret Chen suggested it, I said, sticking to our script, after the gallery incident went viral. The incident where you threw wine at Julian? Sarah's smile sharpened. That didn't look like artistic passion. That looked like genuine hatred. It was complicated, Julian said smoothly. We'd never met in person before that night. Only knew each other through my review of Clara's work 3 years ago. The confrontation was years of unspoken tension finally breaking surface. So you hated him, Sarah looked at me, because of the review. The question was a trap. Deny hatred and look dishonest. Confirm it and undermine our couple narrative. I hated feeling misunderstood, I said carefully. Julian's review was harsh, but not entirely wrong. I had been playing it safe. His words hurt because they contained truth I wasn't ready to face. And now you're in love with him? The question came like a blade. Julian's grip on my hand tightened. We hadn't prepared for this direct an attack. Now we're understanding each other, I said, meeting his eyes, letting the truth bleed through. Making art together, learning that the line between creative passion and personal connection is thinner than either of us expected. That's not an answer, Sarah pressed, because it's not a simple question. Julian leaned forward. What Clara and I have is complicated. We challenge each other, push each other toward better work. Whether that's love or something else entirely, we're still figuring out. The honesty was perfect, vulnerable enough to seem real, vague enough to preserve mystery. Sarah switched tactics. Tell me about the collaborative piece. What's it about? Transformation, I said. The layers between intention and execution. How artists protect themselves and whether that protection becomes a prison. Sounds personal. All good art is personal. Julian's thumb traced circles on my palm. Probably unconscious. Definitely distracting. We're using our own creative wounds as material. The piece literally shows the evolution from raw artistic voice to commercial compromise and back toward authenticity. And you're doing this together despite your history? Sarah looked skeptical. Because of our history, I corrected. Julian is the only person who's ever called me out on my compromises. That makes him the perfect partner for examining them honestly. How romantic, Sarah said dryly. Most people celebrate their partners. You're using yours to excavate your failures. Most people aren't artists, Julian said. His voice carried edge. And excavating failures is how growth happens. Clara makes me examine why I became a critic instead of facing my own artistic inadequacy. I make her confront why she chose safety. We're mirrors for each other's wounds. The phrase made my chest tight. True and terrible and exactly right. Sarah made notes. One more question. If this collaboration succeeds, if the piece is brilliant and the publicity helps both your careers, what happens to your relationship? Do you stay together? Or does this end when the professional obligation does? The silence stretched. Julian's hand was warm in mine. His eyes met mine with question I couldn't answer. We haven't figured that part out yet, I admitted. We're focused on making the best art possible. Everything else, I trailed off. Everything else we'll figure out when we get there, Julian finished. But Clara will always be important to me, collaborator or not. Whatever we become, this month has mattered. After Sarah left, we sat in the conference room staring at each other. His hand still held mine. Neither of us let go. That was harder than the gala, I said quietly, because it required more truth. Julian's thumb traced my knuckles. How much of what we said was performance? I don't know anymore. The confession felt like falling. Do you? No, he stood, pulling me up with him. But I know I meant the last part, about you mattering, about this mattering. Even if it's messy, even if we can't define it, especially then. He kissed my forehead, soft, brief, devastating. Come on, we have a third layer to finish. We left together, hand in hand, no cameras watching. No audience requiring performance. Just two artists learning that sometimes the most honest art comes from not knowing what you're creating until it's finished. The third week dissolved into rhythm. Julian arrived at my studio every morning at 9 a.m., carrying coffee and new ideas. We worked until midnight most nights, only pausing for food deliveries and arguments about composition. The piece grew. We grew with it. Small intimacies accumulated like paint layers. Julian learned I was quieter in mornings. I learned he sketched better with music. He started keeping spare clothes in my studio. I stopped questioning why that made my chest warm. Tuesday morning, he brought me breakfast without asking. Knew I preferred savory, remembered I hated tomatoes. These tiny acknowledgments felt more intimate than staged kisses for cameras. Third layer is almost done, Julian said, studying our canvas. One more resin pour and we can start the reconstruction phase. The part where we try to find our way back to authentic, I mused. The hardest part. For both of us. He moved beside me. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved away. I've been thinking about my evolution, how I went from wannabe painter to destroyer of other artists' confidence. That's worth examining in this piece. You weren't destroying, I said quietly. You were defending something you loved. Art, integrity, the idea that creating should matter. His gray eyes found mine. You're being generous. I'm being honest. You were cruel in execution, but not wrong in intent. I touched the canvas where our third layer showed cracks forming. I needed someone to call me out, just maybe not so publicly. If I could go back, he started. Don't. I cut him off. We can't go back, only forward, into whatever this becomes. Wednesday afternoon, we ran out of resin mid-pour. Julian volunteered to get more while I cleaned brushes. When he returned an hour later with supplies and takeout from my favorite Thai place, my heart did something dangerous. You remembered, I said stupidly, staring at pad Thai. I remember everything about you. The admission was casual, devastating. How you bite your lip when you're concentrating. How you pace when you're processing an idea. How you smile differently when art is working versus when you're faking confidence. That's terrifying. I opened the food container, being that seen. It's terrifying to see you this clearly too. He sat on my couch, exhausted, honest. Because I can't unsee it now. Can't pretend you're just a collaborator or a professional obligation. What am I then? He was quiet for a long moment. Everything I didn't know I needed to make art matter again. Thursday evening, Maya stopped by and found us working in comfortable silence. Julian mixing colors, me sketching possible reconstruction images. Moving around each other like choreography we'd practiced for years instead of weeks. You two look married, Maya observed. We're just efficient, I protested. Sure, she didn't believe me. That's definitely what this is, efficiency. After she left, Julian glanced at me. Do we look married? I don't know what married looks like, I returned to sketching, but I know this feels different than anything I've experienced before. Different how? Like I can breathe around you now, like you see all my broken parts and aren't scared of them. I set down my pencil. Like maybe broken doesn't mean irreparable. Julian crossed to me, took my hands. You were never broken, Clara. Just convinced you needed to be smaller to survive. I'm watching you grow back to your real size. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. Friday morning, we finished the third layer. Stood back to assess our progress. 3 layers now visible through resin. Raw intention, market pressure, cracking compromise, the foundation for transformation. One more layer, Julian said, the reconstruction, finding authenticity after learning all the ways it can be lost. How do we visualize that, I asked. By being brave. He looked at me. Really brave. Raw as your thesis work. Honest as these past 3 weeks. No more hiding. Together? Together. He squeezed my shoulder. We'll excavate courage from both our ruins and build something neither of us could make alone. That night, after Julian left, I texted him. Thank you for seeing me, the real me, even when I was hiding. His response came instantly. Thank you for letting me, for trusting me with your broken parts when I gave you every reason not to. I fell asleep with my phone in hand, the studio smelling like resin and possibility. Julian's words echoing through dreams that felt increasingly like waking life. The gallery opening Monday night was supposed to be another networking obligation. Show up, be seen. Support emerging artists. Simple. But Elena Moretti made simple impossible. Julian! She materialized in front of us wearing red silk and predatory confidence. Art critic for a European publication. Sharp, beautiful, aware of her power. I heard you'd gone soft, defending artists instead of destroying them. Julian's hand tightened on my waist. Elena, unexpected to see you in New York. Following the story of the year, her smile was calculated. The infamous Clara Bennett taming Julian Cross. Very Beauty and the Beast. I'm writing a feature. We're not a story, I said evenly. We're a collaboration. Of course. Elena's eyes traveled over me, assessing, dismissing. How brave of you to work with the man who eviscerated you publicly. Most artists would hold grudges. But I suppose when you need career rehabilitation badly enough. That's enough, Julian cut in, voice sharp. Oh, come now. I'm being honest. You respect honesty. Elena touched his arm. Familiar, possessive. Besides, we both know you're more comfortable with intellectuals than artists who work on instinct. The insult was casual, cutting, positioned me as lesser. Implied Julian was slumming. Clara works on instinct backed by rigorous technical skill and emotional intelligence, Julian said. His voice could have frozen water. Something you'd understand if you spent time creating instead of just commenting on others' creation, like I used to. Elena's smile hardened. Defending her is sweet, but we both remember when you valued artistic integrity over political correctness, when you weren't afraid to call mediocrity what it was. I still value integrity, Julian's arm around me tightened, which is why I'm calling out lazy criticism disguised as intellectual rigor. You haven't even seen our collaborative piece, haven't examined Clara's recent evolution. You're just recycling tired narratives about artistic compromise without doing the work to understand what's actually happening. And what's happening? Elena stepped closer. Besides the obvious, you fell for someone you once dismissed. It's very romantic but terrible for your critical credibility. Jealousy flooded my chest. Hot, irrational. This woman knew Julian's professional side, had probably worked with him for years, shared intellectual territory I couldn't access. Excuse me, I said, voice tight. I need air. Julian's hand caught my wrist. Clara, I'm fine, just hot, crowded. I pulled away, fled toward the gallery exit. Outside, city lights blurred. I was being ridiculous. Elena was right. Julian and I came from different worlds. He was intellectual precision. I was emotional chaos. What was I doing pretending we could create something meaningful together? Hey, Maya's voice. She'd followed me out. Want to talk about how you just watched another woman flirt with your fake boyfriend? He's not my boyfriend, fake or otherwise. Clara, she turned me to face her. You're in love with him. I'm not. You are. I watched your face in there. When she touched him, you looked like you wanted to throw more wine. I sank onto a bench. Maya sat beside me, patient, steady. What if this is a mistake? What if I'm confusing artistic chemistry with actual feelings? Is that what you think it is? I thought about morning coffee deliveries, Julian knowing my favorite foods, the way he looked at my hidden paintings like they mattered, how he made me brave again. No, I admitted quietly, it's real, at least for me. But what if I'm just a project to him, the artist he's rehabilitating to prove he can be kind? That man looks at you like you're the only art that matters. Maya squeezed my hand. He's not performing anymore. Neither are you. Whatever this started as, it's grown into something real. Inside, Julian appeared in the doorway, saw us, started toward us with determined strides. Elena nowhere visible. I sent her away, he said without preamble. Told her our collaboration is none of her business, and her criticism was sloppy. Also told her to read my official review when the piece debuts, if she wants actual insight instead of gossip. You didn't have to do that, I said. Yes, I did. He crouched in front of me, gray eyes serious. Clara, I don't know what we're doing. Don't know if this is sustainable past 30 days, or if we're building something that matters beyond the deadline. But I know Elena was wrong. About you, about us, about everything. She touched you like she had a right to. She doesn't. His hands found mine. No one does except you, if you want it. I don't want to be a project. My voice cracked. Don't want to be the artist you fix to prove you're capable of kindness. You're not a project, he stood, pulling me up with him. You're a revelation. You're making me remember why I loved art before I became afraid of my own inadequacy. Working with you, creating with you, is showing me what artistic partnership should feel like. Equal, challenging, honest. I got jealous, I admitted. When she touched you, when she implied she understood you better than I do, it was irrational. It was human. His thumb traced my jaw. And for what it's worth, I've been jealous since day 3. Every time Maya makes you laugh, every time another artist looks at you too long, I have no right to that jealousy, but I feel it anyway. Maya stood. I'm going to give you two some privacy. Try not to make out in public. It'll ruin your mysterious couple aesthetic. After she left, Julian and I stood on the sidewalk. City noise around us. Chemistry between us. We should probably talk about this, I said. What we're becoming. What happens after. Probably. He tucked hair behind my ear. But not tonight. Tonight, let's just go back to your studio and work. Make art together. Let everything else sort itself out. Is that avoidance or wisdom? Probably both. His smile was soft, real. But I'm tired of fighting what I feel. Tired of pretending this is just professional. Can we table the difficult conversations and just exist in the honest parts for a while? I nodded. Because he was right. Because dissecting feelings felt less important than creating together. Because sometimes the art knew what you needed before you did. We returned to my studio, worked until dawn, and if our hands touched more than necessary, if we stood closer than collaboration required, if the air between us felt charged with everything unsaid, that was honest too. Studio, Wednesday evening, golden hour light painting everything amber and forgiving. We'd been working on the 4th layer's underdrawing, the reconstruction phase where the piece would attempt to rebuild authentic voice after compromise. Julian stood at the canvas, charcoal in hand, sketching preliminary lines that would guide our final layer. Can I ask you something? His voice was careful, too careful. Always. I was mixing paint nearby, testing color combinations that felt true. When this is over, the 30 days, the collaboration, the performance, do you want it to be over? All of it? My hand stilled. The question hung heavy between us. I don't know how to answer that, I admitted, turned to face him. What do you want? He set down the charcoal, moved toward me with deliberate steps. His gray eyes held something I hadn't seen before: vulnerability, hope, fear. I want to keep making art with you, he said quietly. Want to keep bringing you coffee and arguing about composition and watching you remember how to be brave. I want... He stopped, swallowed hard. Clara, I'm trying to tell you that somewhere between the fake dates and real creative partnership, I fell for you. Completely. And I don't know what to do with that. The confession stole my breath, made my heart hammer against ribs. Every rational part of me screamed caution. 3 weeks ago, this man was my enemy. Now he was confessing feelings that mirrored my own terrifying ones. Julian, I started, voice uncertain. You don't have to say anything, he interrupted. I know it's complicated. Know we have history that makes this messy. But I couldn't keep pretending I'm just your professional partner when every time you smile at me, I forget how to breathe. I should have been careful, should have protected myself. Instead, I heard myself say, I fell for you too. Probably around day 5 when you defended my hidden paintings. Definitely by the time you defended me to Thomas. It's terrifying. Something like relief flooded his expression. Yeah? Yeah, I laughed, slightly hysterical. I'm in love with my enemy. Maya's going to be insufferable. We cannot tell Maya. She already knows. Has known for weeks, probably. I stepped closer. So what now? We're collaborators who fell for each other. What does that look like? Julian's hands found my waist. Gentle, asking permission. I have no idea, but I know I don't want to stop touching you, stop learning you, stop creating with you. Can that be enough? For now? For now, I agreed, rose on tiptoes. But Julian, yeah? If you break my heart after making me fall for you, I'm throwing something more expensive than wine. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Fair enough. He leaned down, forehead pressing against mine. Clara, I'm going to... My studio door opened. Maya again, bearing wine and terrible timing. Oh, for the love of... Again? She threw up her hands. Do I need to start calling ahead? Sending warning texts? Hiring a skywriter? Julian and I sprang apart for the second time in 3 weeks. The universe was conspiring against us. Maybe lock your door next time, Maya suggested sweetly, setting down wine, completely unrepentant. Also, I brought dinner. And yes, I already know you're in love. You're both obvious. Now can we eat while you tell me about the final layer? Julian looked at me. Something passed between us. Promise. Patience. Later. Sure, I said, let's eat. But under the table during dinner, his hand found mine, squeezed once, held on. Later, after Maya left and we returned to working, Julian whispered, I'm still going to tell you properly when we don't have an audience. I'll hold you to that, I whispered back. We worked until midnight, and if we stood closer than necessary, if we touched more than the art required, if we fell asleep on my studio couch tangled together, that was the honesty we'd been building toward all along. The final layer came together like revelation, like everything we'd been working toward converging into single vision. Thursday morning, 3 days before our exhibition deadline, we started the reconstruction. I painted while Julian directed. He painted while I guided. No ego, no ownership. Just joint creation, pouring our merged understanding onto canvas. More crimson there, he said, where the courage returns. Make it violent, unapologetic. My hand moved, bold strokes reclaiming space, showing artistic voice fighting back toward authenticity. Gold accents, I suggested, threading through the reconstruction, showing hope without naivety. Julian's precise lines wove through my chaos, order and emotion married. His criticism channeled into creation, my raw feelings balanced by his intellectual rigor. By afternoon, something extraordinary emerged. The piece showed four transparent layers: raw intention, market pressure, cracking compromise, and now this violent, beautiful reconstruction. Each layer visible through resin, the full evolution of artistic voice laid bare. Clara, Julian's voice was awed. This is the best work I've ever been part of, the best work I've seen in years. We did this, I corrected. Together, neither of us could have made this alone. He pulled me into his arms, held tight. We stood before our creation, metaphor for our own transformation, and I felt his heart beating against my back. Thank you, he whispered against my hair, for trusting me, for letting me be part of something this real. Thank you for seeing me, I turned in his arms, for pushing me back toward courage. We kissed, finally, properly, no interruptions or almost moments, just honest connection. His mouth was gentle, thorough, tasted like coffee and possibility. My hands fisted in his shirt. His arms tightened around me. The studio disappeared. Time suspended. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you. I need you to know that. Not as performance, not as artistic partnership, as truth. I love you too. The words felt like jumping off cliffs, like painting without caring who watched. It's terrifying. Best things usually are. He kissed me again, softer, sweeter. Now let's finish this piece. Show the world what happens when artists stop being afraid. We worked until dawn, the final layer complete. Our collaborative piece finished with 3 days to spare. 6 feet by 8 feet of transparent vulnerability. 4 layers telling the story of artistic transformation, from courage to fear to courage again. It's perfect, I breathed. It's honest, Julian corrected, which is better than perfect. We photographed it, documented the layers, prepared it for exhibition. And somewhere in the work, in the creation, in the honest collaboration, we stopped performing and started living something real. My phone buzzed. Margaret. Caldwell wants preview before public exhibition. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Be prepared to discuss the work's meaning. Julian read over my shoulder. One final performance. No, I turned to face him. No more performing. We tell him the truth. About the art, about us, about everything. If he pulls funding because we're messy and real, instead of polished lies, then we survive anyway. You sure? I'm terrified. But yes, I kissed him. I'm done being afraid of my own truth. Then we faced Caldwell together. He pulled me close. Honest, brave, real. We fell asleep on my couch, exhausted, covered in paint, our finished piece watching over us like benediction, like proof that destruction could become creation, that enemies could become collaborators, that love could emerge from the ruins of hatred if both people were brave enough to excavate it. Friday morning arrived with deceptive calm. Julian left early to shower and change for the Caldwell meeting. I stayed in the studio, staring at our finished piece, trying to prepare words to explain it, trying not to panic about exposing our vulnerability to the man funding our careers. My phone rang, unknown number. Clara Bennett? Professional voice, female, unfamiliar. Speaking. This is Andrea Yates from Art Weekly magazine. I'm fact-checking a story running tomorrow about your collaboration with Julian Cross. Do you have time for a few questions? Confusion gripped me. What story? We haven't authorized any features beyond Sarah Chen's interview. This is Julian's story. His editor at Contemporary Criticism Quarterly commissioned a retrospective think piece, The Artist I Broke, a critic's confession. It includes analysis of your collaboration as case study in artistic rehabilitation. The studio tilted. What? Julian's been writing it for weeks. His editor offered him senior columnist position if he delivers honest examination of how his criticism affects artists' careers. Your collaboration is the central narrative, the before and after. How his harsh review destroyed you, how working together rebuilt you. She paused. You didn't know? No. The word came out strangled. I didn't know. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I thought, look, the piece is scheduled to run Monday, day after your exhibition. His editor wants to capitalize on the publicity, but if you weren't aware, she sounded genuinely distressed. You should talk to Julian. I'll give you space to process this. She hung up. I sat frozen in my studio, staring at our collaborative piece, at 4 layers of vulnerability we'd created together. At the art I'd thought was honest partnership, but was apparently just material for Julian's career advancement. The studio door opened. Julian, freshly showered, wearing the suit he'd saved for important meetings. His smile died when he saw my expression. What's wrong? The artist I broke, a critic's confession. My voice was flat. Want to explain that? All color drained from his face. Clara, you've been writing about me, about us, this whole time? I stood, shaking with anger and hurt. Everything was just research? Material for your career redemption story? No, God, no. That's not... He stepped toward me. I backed away. When were you going to tell me? After the exhibition? After you published your think piece about how you rehabilitated the broken artist? Was any of it real, Julian? Or was I just your case study? It's not like that. His voice was desperate. My editor approached me 4 months ago, before we even started collaborating, before I knew you beyond that review. He wanted retrospective on how critics impact careers. Thought my relationship with your work would be good material. And you agreed, without asking me. I agreed before I knew you. His hands fisted at his sides. Before this collaboration became real, before Clara, I fell in love with you. That wasn't research. That was never research. But you kept writing the piece. Tears burned my eyes. Kept documenting my vulnerability. Kept taking notes on my artistic evolution like I was an experiment. I stopped writing it 3 weeks ago. He pulled out his phone, showed me drafts. Look, last entry is from before I realized I was falling for you. I haven't touched it since. I was going to tell you, ask if you'd consent to the story, make you co-author if you wanted. I never intended to publish without your knowledge. I wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the man who'd held me last night was real. But 3 years of learned caution screamed warnings. Get out, I whispered. Clara, please, out! The word came out broken. I can't look at you right now, can't think, just go. We have the Caldwell meeting in 2 hours. He wants preview of the piece. We need to... I'll handle it. I turned my back on him. Just go. Silence. Then footsteps. The door closing. Emptiness. I sank to the floor in front of our collaborative piece. At 4 layers of vulnerability I thought was mutual. At honest creation that was apparently just his redemption narrative. My phone buzzed. Maya. On my way. Don't do anything rash. How did she always know? Didn't matter. I sat surrounded by our art, by evidence of connection that might have been performance all along, by my own stupid hope that someone could see me clearly and love what they found. The piece was still brilliant, still honest, still everything we'd claimed it was, but I didn't know if I could stand beside it and pretend my heart wasn't shattered. Didn't know if I could face Caldwell in 2 hours and sell a collaboration built on lies. Outside, the city continued existing. People made art without being betrayed. Critics wrote pieces without destroying the artists they claimed to love. Normal people lived normal lives. I'd never been normal. And Julian Cross had just proven why trusting your enemy, even when they claim to love you, was always a mistake. 7 days of silence. 7 days since I'd stood before Richard Caldwell alone, explaining our collaborative piece without Julian beside me. 7 days since I'd convinced the old man that the art mattered more than the artist's drama. 7 days since the exhibition had opened to critical acclaim, and I'd felt nothing but hollow. The reviews called it transformative, a meditation on artistic integrity, the most honest contemporary work in years. Julian's name appeared beside mine in every article. Equal credit, joint triumph. I hadn't read his messages, hadn't listened to his voicemails, just worked alone in my studio, staring at the empty space where our collaboration used to stand before the museum claimed it. Maya had stopped trying to convince me to talk to him. Now she just brought food and sat with me in silence. Solidarity without judgment. "He's still calling," she said Friday evening, watching me push pad thai around a container without eating. I know. The exhibition closes Sunday. After that, the 30 days are officially over. Your contract obligations end. I know that too. Clara, she set down her own food. You need to decide. Either forgive him or officially end things. This limbo is killing you both. He betrayed me. The words felt rehearsed, hollow. Used our collaboration as material for his career comeback. He fell in love with you and stopped writing the piece. Maya's voice was gentle, frustrating. He made a mistake before he knew you, then tried to fix it. By not telling me until a reporter called. I stood, paced. That's not fixing anything, Maya. That's hoping I never found out. Or that's being scared to ruin something good by admitting a complicated truth. She followed me with her eyes. You're looking for reasons to push him away, because being loved by Julian Cross is terrifying, and you're more comfortable with hatred than vulnerability. The accusation landed like physical blow, true and terrible. Get out, I whispered. Clara, please, I need to be alone. After she left, I stood in the center of my studio, surrounded by new work I'd started. Angry paintings, raw paintings, the kind of art I'd made before Julian's review taught me fear. The kind I'd remembered how to make because of our collaboration. My phone buzzed. Not Julian this time. Margaret. Exhibition extended 2 weeks due to demand. Congratulations. You and Julian created something extraordinary. I stared at the message, at proof that our collaboration had succeeded beyond requirements. We'd saved the funding, launched both our careers into new trajectories, done everything we'd set out to accomplish, everything except survive the collateral damage. Saturday afternoon, Maya showed up at my studio with determination in her eyes and my car keys in her hand. Get dressed, we're going somewhere. I'm not in the mood for, don't care, you're spiraling, I'm intervening. Put on real clothes and let's go. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a gallery I didn't recognize. Modern, minimalist, the kind of space that housed serious art. Why are we here? I asked. You'll see. She dragged me inside. The gallery was empty, Saturday closing hours. But the lights were on, illuminating a single exhibition. My breath caught. My work. All of it. The hidden paintings I'd kept in storage for 3 years. The raw, honest pieces I'd been too afraid to show. Arranged in a complete retrospective spanning my thesis work through my recent angry pieces. What is this? My voice cracked. Julian arranged it. Maya walked me deeper into the space. Called every gallery owner he knows. Convinced Marcus Chen to give you a month-long solo show starting next week. Used his entire professional reputation to guarantee your work would be taken seriously. I moved through the space in a daze. My grief paintings, my rage paintings, my everything I was too scared to show paintings, all displayed with museum-quality lighting and careful curation. A placard near the entrance read, Clara Bennett, Excavation, a retrospective of uncompromising artistic voice, curated by Julian Cross. His curatorial notes accompanied each piece, not criticism, just observation. understanding, seeing, about my thesis work. Bennett captures grief's violence with unflinching honesty. This is an artist unafraid of truth. About a piece from year 2. Here we see the beginning of caution. The emotion remains but starts negotiating with market expectations. Still powerful, not yet compromised. About my recent work. Bennett reclaims her voice. The anger returns, now tempered with technical mastery. This is what happens when an artist stops apologizing for taking up space. Tears blurred my vision. At the center of the gallery hung our collaborative piece, the 4 transparent layers. With a final note, this piece represents 2 artists learning that vulnerability is strength, that creative partnership requires excavating wounds together, that sometimes the person who challenges you most is exactly who you need to grow. I'm grateful Clara Bennett trusted me with her artistic evolution. I'm more grateful she trusted me with her heart, even briefly. This collaboration changed my life. He did this in 7 days, Maya said quietly, while you weren't speaking to him. While he didn't know if you'd ever forgive him. He did it anyway because you deserved to be seen. My hands shook. Where is he? Probably at his apartment, waiting to see if you'll show up to tomorrow's exhibition opening. The one he organized without telling you because he thought you'd refuse. I turned to Maya. Why didn't you tell me? Because you needed to see it yourself. Needed to understand that man isn't using you for career advancement. He's using his career to advance yours, even if it costs him everything. I pulled out my phone, stared at Julian's name. At 7 days of messages I hadn't read, at voicemails I hadn't heard. What if I hurt him too badly? I whispered. What if pushing him away for a week broke what we had? Only one way to find out. Maya handed me her keys. Go talk to him. Actually listen this time. Decide if you want to be right or if you want to be happy. I didn't go to Julian's apartment. Instead, I returned to the gallery after Maya left. Sat alone in the space he created for me. Let myself really see what he'd done. This wasn't career advancement. This was love. Complicated, imperfect love from someone who expressed emotion through action rather than words. Who'd spent 7 days building me a future while I'd spent 7 days nursing hurt feelings. My phone buzzed. Julian. Finally, I read his messages. Day 1. Clara, please let me explain properly. I made a mistake. Let me fix it. Day 2. I'm not writing the piece. Never sending it. You're not a case study. You're everything. Day 3. I'm arranging something. A surprise. Trust me one more time. Day 4. Marcus Chen agreed to the show. Your hidden work deserves to be seen. Day 5. I miss you. Miss working with you. Miss everything we were building. Day 6. Exhibition opening is Sunday. Please come, even if you hate me. Your work matters. Day 7. I love you. That was real. Is real. Will always be real. Whatever you decide. Tears streamed down my face. At his consistency, his effort, his refusal to give up even when I'd shut him out completely. I called him. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. He answered on the first ring. Clara? His voice was wrecked, hopeful, terrified. I'm at the gallery, I said, the one you arranged, with all my hidden work. Silence. Then, you saw it? I saw it. I stood, walking through the space, phone pressed to my ear. Julian, I don't have words for what this is. You deserved it. Deserved to be seen properly, not hidden, not compromised. He paused. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the article idea. Sorry I let my editor's proposal become this secret between us. I should have been honest from day one. You should have. I stopped in front of our collaborative piece. But I should have listened when you tried to explain. Should have read your messages instead of hiding in my hurt. You had every right to be hurt. I betrayed your trust, even unintentionally. His voice cracked. Clara, I would never use you, would never exploit our collaboration for professional gain. You have to believe that. I do believe it. The admission felt like freedom. I was scared. Easier to be angry than admit I'd fallen in love with someone who could still hurt me. I could say the same thing. A bitter laugh. I fell in love with the artist I'd once destroyed, terrified every day that you'd wake up and remember you were supposed to hate me. I tried hating you for 7 days. I pressed my forehead against the glass, protecting our collaborative peace. Didn't work. Turns out, I just love you. Even when you're an idiot. I'm frequently an idiot. He sounded closer to tears than I'd ever heard. But I'm an idiot who loves you completely, who wants to keep making art with you, keep learning you, keep being terrified together. Where are you right now? Home, staring at sketches for our next collaboration, hoping you'd forgive me enough to work together again. Our next collaboration? My heart hammered. Only if you want. No contracts, no deadlines, no performance. Just two artists making what matters. He paused. Together, if you'll have me. I'm coming over, I said. Don't move. I drove through Saturday evening traffic with my heart in my throat, pulled up to Julian's building, sleek, modern, so perfectly him, and buzzed his apartment. Clara? His voice through the intercom was disbelieving. Let me up. We need to talk properly. The door clicked open. I climbed stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. Needed the movement, the time to organize thoughts. Julian waited in his doorway, barefoot, worn jeans, paint-stained shirt. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, looked beautiful and broken and mine. Hi, I said stupidly. Hi, he stepped back. Come in. His apartment was exactly what I'd imagined. Clean lines, minimal furniture, one wall entirely books, another entirely windows overlooking the city. Art everywhere, some his failed attempts, most pieces by other artists he admired. A desk in the corner held his laptop, papers, sketches for our collaborative piece, and a leather journal I recognized. Is that the article? I asked. He followed my gaze, nodded. Want to read it? Should I? Probably. He picked up the journal. It's not what the reporter made it sound like. Or maybe it started that way, but it evolved, like we did. I took the journal, sat on his couch. He sat across from me, giving me space, hands clasped between his knees like he was praying. I read his words from 4 months ago, analyzing how his review had impacted my career. Clinical, distant, the observations of a critic examining cause and effect. Then entries from our collaboration's beginning, still analytical but warmer, recognition dawning. Clara Bennett is more than her compromises. Today she showed me paintings she's hidden for 3 years. They're brilliant, everything I hoped she'd create. I might have been wrong about my methods. Middle entries grew personal. Working with Clara is teaching me what I sacrificed by choosing criticism over creation. She makes me want to be brave again, want to create instead of just commenting on creation. The final entry, dated 3 weeks ago. I'm in love with her. This stops being an article and starts being my life. I can't write about her clinically anymore. Can't reduce what we're building to case study. She's not the artist I broke. She's the artist who's rebuilding me. I need to tell her everything, including this article that should never be published because she deserves privacy and partnership, not to be documented like an experiment. Tomorrow I'll confess. Tomorrow I'll make this right. Tomorrow had been the day the reporter called, the day I'd found out before he could explain. I closed the journal, looked at Julian. You were going to tell me. Yes, his voice was thick. Was terrified you'd hate me, but planned to tell you everything. Give you the journal. Let you decide if you wanted your story told or if I should burn these pages. What would you have done if I said burn them? Burn them, no hesitation. Your trust matters more than my career. Your story is yours to tell or bury. I stood, crossed to him, took his face in my hands. Julian Cross, you're an idiot. I know. Tears tracked down his cheeks. I'm so sorry, Clara, for the article idea, for not being honest sooner, for everything. Stop apologizing. I kissed him, soft, sure. I forgive you. I love you. Let's stop wasting time on fear. He pulled me into his lap, held tight like I might disappear. I love you so much. Want to make art with you forever. Want to fight about composition and mix paints at 2 a.m. and watch you remember how to be brave. I want that too. I buried my face in his neck. All of it. The messy, complicated, real version, where we're not perfect, but we're honest. We're terrible at perfect anyway. His laugh rumbled through both our chests. But we're excellent at honest. We stayed like that until the city lights came on below us, until my breathing matched his, until the fear of the past week dissolved into the certainty of this moment. So, Julian said eventually, about tomorrow's exhibition opening, the one you arranged without telling me? That one, yes. He pulled back to see my face. Will you come? Let people see your real work? Stand with me and claim what you've created. Only if you stand beside me when they ask about us. I traced his jaw. Only if we stop performing and start admitting this is real. Deal. He kissed me again. Deeper, sweeter. Tomorrow we stop hiding, both of us. Sunday morning arrived with sunlight and nerves. Julian picked me up at my studio wearing dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look like storm clouds. He held coffee and a small wrap box. What's this? I asked, taking both. Open it. Inside the box was a small leather journal, empty pages, my initials embossed on the cover. For documenting our next collaboration, Julian said. Equal authorship this time. We write our story together or not at all. The gesture made my throat tight. I love it. I love you. Good. He kissed my forehead. Because the press is going to ask invasive questions today, and I plan to tell them the truth, that I'm in love with my collaborator, that she's the best artist I know, that watching her work is my new favorite form of creation. Very romantic. The art critics will eat it up. Don't care about critics anymore. His smile was soft, real. Only care about you. The gallery was already crowded when we arrived. Collectors, critics, other artists, Maya waving from the back, Margaret looking satisfied, and Richard Caldwell standing before our collaborative piece with an expression of deep contemplation. Mr. Caldwell, I said, approaching with Julian's hand in mine, thank you for coming. Couldn't miss it. His sharp eyes took in our joined hands. I see you two worked out your differences. We did. Julian's thumb traced circles on my palm. Turns out fighting about art is just how we communicate. Healthy relationships require honesty, Caldwell gestured at our piece. This work is devastatingly honest. 4 layers showing artistic compromise and reconstruction. It's the best contemporary piece I've seen in a decade. Thank you, sir, I said. It required vulnerability from both of us. Best art always does, he smiled. I'm increasing the museum's grant. Another $250,000. Want to sponsor both your next solo shows? Separately and together. You're the kind of artist worth investing in. After he left, Julian pulled me close. Did that just happen? I think he just funded our careers for the next year. Good, he kissed my temple. Because I have ideas for our next collaboration. Bigger, bolder, more terrifying than this one. I'm in. I leaned into him. Whatever you want to make, I'm in. The rest of the opening blurred. Press interviews where we admitted our relationship was real. Other artists congratulating us. Collectors buying my hidden work. Proof that honesty could succeed where careful performance had failed. Around 3 p.m., a woman approached. Elena Moretti, the critic who tried to undermine us. Clara, Julian, her smile was tight. Congratulations on the extended exhibition. Your collaborative piece is quite good. Thank you, I said evenly. And I hear you're together now. Romantically, her tone suggested scandal. We are. Julian's arm around my waist tightened. Clara is my partner, creatively and personally. I'm grateful she tolerates my complicated personality. How modern. Elena's eyes narrowed. I suppose love makes fools of everyone eventually. Or makes us brave enough to create honestly. I met her gaze. Julian challenged me toward better work. I challenged him toward better humanity. That's partnership, not foolishness. After she left, Julian laughed. You just told Elena Moretti we make each other better. She's going to write about this for months. Let her. I turned in his arms. I'm done hiding, done pretending, done caring what critics think about my life. Even this critic? He gestured at himself. Especially this critic. I kissed him. You're retired from destroying artists. New job description. Muse, partner, and primary source of studio snacks. I can work with that. He kissed me back. Soft. Sure. Love you, Clara Bennett. Love you too, Julian Cross. I rested my forehead against his. Let's go make something beautiful. Monday morning, Julian's official review of our collaboration published. Not in his old magazine, but in Art Quarterly, the most respected publication in contemporary criticism. I read it curled on his couch, him beside me, nervous energy radiating from his body. The reconstruction of voice. Bennett and Cross collaborate toward authenticity. 3 years ago, I wrote a review that damaged an artist's confidence. I stand by the content. Clara Bennett had buried her considerable talent beneath market-safe work. But I regret my methods. Destruction without offering reconstruction is lazy criticism. This collaboration began as obligation, a museum contract forcing two antagonists into partnership. It evolved into something neither of us expected, honest, creative dialogue between equals. Bennett brought raw emotion, technical mastery, and courage I'd thought she'd lost. I brought precision, structural thinking, and the willingness to be challenged. Together we created a piece that examines artistic compromise through transparent layers, each phase visible, each decision exposed. The result is transformative, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. This is what happens when artists stop protecting themselves and start creating from vulnerability. Working with Clara Bennett changed my understanding of criticism. I'm no longer interested in destroying artistic confidence. I'm interested in challenging artists toward their best work while respecting their humanity. This collaboration taught me that the best art comes from partnership, not isolation. That vulnerability is strength. That sometimes the person who challenges you most is exactly who you need to grow. I'm grateful Clara trusted me with her artistic evolution. I'm more grateful she trusted me with her heart. This piece deserves to be seen, not as my redemption story, but as proof that transformation is possible for both art and artists, that we can reclaim lost courage, that growth requires excavating wounds together. Clara Bennett is the most vital contemporary voice in abstract expressionism. She's also the love of my life. I'm biased. I don't care. Watch her work. You'll understand. Julian Cross. I set down my phone, looked at Julian. You published that we're together. I did. He searched my face. Too much? Too public? It's perfect. I kissed him. Honest, brave. Everything we've been building toward. Good. He pulled me into his lap. Because I'm done hiding my feelings in intellectual language. Done pretending criticism is more important than creation. Done being the person who tears down instead of building up. What will you do now, if you're not reviewing? Teach, maybe. Curate exhibitions. Help other artists find their voices. He tucked hair behind my ear. Make art with you. Lots of art with you. I like that plan. I settled against his chest, though the art world might miss Julian Cross's devastating reviews. The art world will survive. He kissed the top of my head. I'd rather spend my time making you coffee and arguing about color theory than destroying other artists' confidence. Very romantic. I tilted my face up. You're going soft, Cross. Only for you, Bennett. He kissed me properly. Only for you. The announcement came Wednesday. Contemporary Art Foundation's Emerging Artist Prize. $250,000 in international exhibition opportunity. Our collaborative piece had won. Clara! Maya burst into my studio waving her phone. Did you see? You won the CAF prize. I looked up from mixing paints. Julian and I were working on concepts for our next piece, something about sustainable love in disposable culture. We won, both of us. Still, this is huge. She tackled me in a hug. You're officially a serious artist now. No more hiding work. No more playing safe. Julian arrived an hour later with champagne and Chinese food. Congratulations, partner. Congratulations yourself. I kissed him. We did this together. Yeah, we did. He set down food, pulled me close. Two enemies who became collaborators, who became lovers, who won a major prize. Very dramatic story arc. Think there's a novel in it? Probably terrible. He laughed against my hair. But ours. We celebrated quietly. Just us and Maya and too much wine. Talking about future projects, about what winning meant, about how far we'd come from that wine-throwing incident 6 weeks ago. You two are disgusting, Maya announced around 10 p.m. All hard eyes and domestic bliss. I preferred when you hated each other. Liar, I said. You've been rooting for us since day 3. Maybe, she grinned, but someone had to believe in you when you were both too stubborn to admit feelings. After she left, Julian and I stood before our workspace. Sketches for the next piece covered every surface, our merged vision taking shape. I love this, I said quietly, creating with you, building something neither of us could make alone. Me too. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. You make me better, Clara, as an artist and as a person. These past 6 weeks have been the best of my life. Even the part where I didn't speak to you for a week? Even that, he kissed my neck. Because you came back, chose us, chose continuing despite the mess. I'll always choose us. I turned in his arms. Even when it's scary, even when we fight about composition or color theory or whose turn it is to buy coffee. Good, he rested his forehead against mine. Because I have about 30 years of art ideas that require your specific brand of chaos. Only 30? I smiled. I have 50. Might need to negotiate. We'll compromise, he kissed me. That's what partners do. Friday night, my studio, no agenda except being together. Julian painted while I sketched. Comfortable silence broken only by music and occasional artistic debates. That color is too aggressive, he said, studying my test palette. It's supposed to be aggressive. We're making a piece about resistance. Resistance can be subtle. He moved behind me, hands on my shoulders. Not everything requires shouting. Sometimes shouting is the only way to be heard. I leaned back against him. You taught me that, with your review. With how you challenged me. His hands tightened. I challenged you poorly. You challenged me effectively. I set down my palette, turned to face him. If you'd been gentle, I would have ignored you. Your cruelty made me pay attention, made me question everything, led me here. Led us here, he corrected, to this moment, this partnership, this love that terrifies me daily. Why terrifying? Because I've never cared about someone this much. His gray eyes held mine. Never had this much to lose. You could destroy me with a word, Clara, more thoroughly than any bad review. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. I won't destroy you, promise. I know, he cupped my face. That's what makes it terrifying, that I trust you not to. That I've given you every weapon and you choose gentleness. I kissed him then, not performed for cameras or interrupted by friends, just honest connection. His mouth opened under mine, hands slid into my hair. I pressed closer, painting forgotten, everything narrowing to just this moment. When we broke apart, both breathless, he whispered, "I love you. Every complicated, brilliant, infuriating part of you. I love you too." I traced his jaw. "Every precise, challenging, secretly soft part of you." "Secretly soft?" He raised an eyebrow. "Very secret." I kissed him again. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone the famous Julian Cross is actually a marshmallow." My reputation, he picked me up, carried me to the couch. Ruined. "You ruined it yourself." I pulled him down beside me. "By falling in love with the artist you destroyed." "Best decision I ever made." He settled me against his chest. "Even if it did ruin my reputation." We stayed like that for hours, talking, kissing, planning future collaborations, building the kind of love that grows from honest foundation instead of pretty lies. Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside my studio, wrapped in Julian's arms, I'd finally found home. Spring in Paris felt like permission to be happy. My international solo exhibition at Galerie Claude Bernard had opened to sold-out crowds. Critics called it transformative work from an artist reclaiming her voice. Collectors bought pieces before opening night. Julian stood beside me at the after-party, hand resting on my lower back. Supportive, proud, mine. "You did it," he whispered against my ear. "Your real work, finally shown properly." "We did it." I leaned into him. "I couldn't have found this courage without you." "You always had courage." He kissed my temple. "I just reminded you where you'd buried it." The Parisian art world buzzed around us. Important people discussing my paintings in French and English, in languages I didn't recognize. Maya somewhere in the crowd, probably charming wealthy collectors. Margaret Chen sending congratulatory texts from New York. But the moment that mattered most was this: standing beside Julian in a Paris gallery, showing work I'd been too afraid to share, finally brave enough to take up space. "What's next?" Julian asked. "More solo work? Another collaboration?" "Both." I turned to face him. "I have ideas for a series about sustainable love. Want to make it with you?" "Always." His smile was soft, real. "Whatever you want to make, I'm in." We left the party early, walked along the Seine holding hands. Tourist behavior, but we didn't care. Paris at night was too beautiful to waste on professional networking. "Remember when you threw wine at me?" Julian asked, pulling me close on a bridge overlooking the water. "Which time?" I grinned. "The first time, or the time 2 months ago when you said my color choices were aggressively optimistic?" "Fair point," he laughed. "We do fight a lot." "We debate passionately," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." I kissed him. "Fighting means trying to win. Debating means trying to understand. We debate." "I stand corrected." He pulled me closer. "We debate with tremendous passion." "Exactly." I rested my head against his chest. "And then we make incredible art from all that passionate debate." "Best system I've ever experienced." He rocked us gently. "Love you, Clara Bennett." "Love you too, Julian Cross." I tilted my face up. "Thanks for destroying me 3 years ago. Thanks for throwing wine at me 6 months ago." He kissed me under Paris stars. Best professional disaster of my life. Back in New York, 3 weeks after Paris, I stood in the museum beside Julian. Our collaborative piece hung in permanent collection now, purchased by a private donor who'd insisted it remain publicly accessible. 4 transparent layers telling the story of artistic transformation. Of us. Visitors gathered around it, reading the plaques, examining each layer, understanding the metaphor or just appreciating the technique. Either way, the piece served its purpose. Honest examination of how artists protect themselves and whether that protection becomes prison. "Do you ever regret it?" Julian asked quietly. Just us in the gallery corner, watching strangers interact with our vulnerability. Regret what? Working with me, falling for me, letting your enemy become your partner. I thought about the past 6 months, the fights about composition, the 2 a.m. painting sessions, the way he brought me coffee without asking, how he made me brave again. Not for a second. I took his hand. You? Never. He pulled me close. You're the best thing that ever happened to my art. And my life. Very romantic for a critic. Former critic, he corrected. Current artist, curator, and professionally biased boyfriend. I like professionally biased, I leaned into him. Means you'll always think my work is brilliant. That's because it is brilliant, he kissed my forehead. Even when you use colors I disagree with. Especially then, I smiled, our best pieces come from disagreement. A young woman approached us, hesitant, carrying a portfolio. Excuse me, Clara Bennett? That's me. I'm an art student. Your thesis work inspired me to stop making safe art, to be brave. She clutched her portfolio tighter. I wanted to thank you and ask, would you look at my work? I know you're busy, but... I glanced at Julian. He nodded, understanding. I'd love to. I gestured to a bench. Show me what you're working on. The student, Emma, economics major turned artist, showed me raw, honest paintings. Grief work, rage work, the kind of art that required courage. These are good, I said honestly, really good. Keep making this. Don't let anyone convince you to be smaller. Even if critics say harsh things? I looked at Julian, at the man who'd once destroyed my confidence and later rebuilt it. Especially then, sometimes harsh criticism means you're doing something that matters, something that challenges people. After Emma left, Julian wrapped his arm around me. You just became her inspiration. How does that feel? Terrifying, I admitted. What if I give her bad advice? What if I'm not actually qualified to inspire anyone? You're qualified. He turned me to face him. You survived destruction, rebuilt yourself, made art that matters. That's the only qualification necessary. I looked at our collaborative piece, at proof that enemies could become partners, that artistic wounds could heal, that love could grow from the ruins of hatred if both people were brave enough. We did good work, I said quietly. We did great work, Julian corrected, and we'll make more. For years, decades, forever. Forever is ambitious. I'm an ambitious person. He kissed me, soft, sure. Besides, I have about 50 years of collaborative ideas. Might need your whole lifetime to execute them. Guess you're stuck with me then. Best kind of stuck. He pulled me closer. Love you, Clara. Thanks for not killing me 6 months ago. Thanks for not giving up when I wanted to kill you. I kissed him back. And thanks for making me brave again. You made yourself brave. He rested his forehead against mine. I just reminded you that you always had teeth, that you knew how to bite. We stood in the museum until closing. 2 artists who'd found each other through destruction, who'd built something meaningful from mutual wounds, who'd proven that sometimes the person who challenges you most is exactly who you need. Outside, the city glittered with possibility. Tomorrow we'd start a new collaboration. Next week, another exhibition. Next month, who knew? But tonight, walking hand in hand through New York streets, we were just Clara and Julian, artists and partners, enemies turned lovers, 2 complicated people making beautiful things together. And that was enough, more than enough, everything we'd needed all along.